Welcome to Your Health is Wealth podcast. The podcast invites you to embrace the profound truth that your health is your wealth. I'm your host, Kristen Burke. This podcast aims to take you on a journey into the landscape of alternative medicine, integrative practices, and holistic healing options that empower you to thrive in mind, body, and spirit. Today in our segment,
Episode 5, Fusion of Tradition and Innovation, Holistic Approach to Women's Health, where we delve into the intersection of traditional and modern healing. I'm thrilled to introduce today's guest, Dr. Milan Chavarkar. She's a trailblazer in the world of integrative and functional medicine. With a career spanning over 25 years, Milan has a remarkable journey that started as an entry-level nurse midwife and evolved into a pioneering force in the holistic healthcare. Milan's career began with a deep belief in the innate power of the human body, particularly in women's health and childbirth. Her early training in holistic practices laid a strong foundation for her approach. Over the years, as she transitioned into family practice, Milan experienced the limitations of conventional medicine, often feeling that pharmaceutical solutions were falling short in addressing the root causes of her patients' issues. This realization prompted a significant shift in her career. In 2020, right before the pandemic, Milan earned her doctorate of nursing practice from UC San Francisco and embarked on a new path with the creation of Lotus Integrative Health and Nursing. This transition was driven by her desire to combine traditional medical knowledge with a more integrative and functional approach. Addressing health concerns at the core, integrative and functional medicine, as Milan practices it, blends the best of traditional and modern healing methods. It's about understanding and treating the root causes of illness through a combination of techniques, including diet, lifestyle changes, and alternative therapies. Her approach emphasizes collaboration with a range of healthcare providers from acupuncturists to dietitians, creating a holistic plan that respects and incorporates various modalities. Today, we'll explore Milan's experiences in shifting from traditional nursing to this comprehensive model, the challenges she faced, and the successes she celebrated. We'll also discuss her approach that has transformed patient care, particularly in complex cases like fertility issues, and how she continues to innovate her practices. Welcome, Dr. Milan Chavarkar. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's wonderful to have you on our show. First, can you share a bit about your nursing journey and how your career has evolved over the past 25 years?
Hi, thank you so much, Kristen. I'm so excited to be here. It's such a joy to be in healthcare, and I can't believe it's been 25 years. It's been so wonderful to take care of patients and be a part of the healthcare system over the last 25 years. I started my career as a nurse midwife, and I went to Columbia University's program where it's called Entry to Practice. So I have a bachelor's in molecular and cell biology from Berkeley, and decided to enter healthcare as a nurse and became a nurse and a nurse midwife. And about 3 years into my practice, decided I really wanted to expand my knowledge and became a family practice nurse practitioner, primarily working in community health in California's underserved and most sickest patients. And somewhere in that journey, feeling frustrated by the healthcare system and wanting to make more change, I decided to shift gears a little bit and attain a doctorate of nursing practice from UCSF. And this happened right before the pandemic. I thought I would go into management or teaching, but then I just decided to start a business.
Wow. That's amazing. So you have your doctorate in nursing?
I do.
So, nurse practitioner, and you have your experience with community health. So you've reached out and have lifted up the underserved, which is amazing. And also your doctorate in nursing. So you have a lot of experience to bring to the table. With you working as a nurse midwife, And first of all, can you explain what a midwife is before we go on to this next question? Many people may not know what a midwife is and how their function actually.
Midwife, we have different kinds of midwives. I'm a nurse midwife, so I have nursing training and midwifery training. And midwife means with woman. And basically, midwives have a tradition of women to woman care from many years ago. We have women who would help other women birth at home, but that's evolved where midwifery is a science and we use OBGYN education to care for women before pregnancy, during pregnancy, do the delivery, and then of course do postpartum care. So this can be in the hospital, at home, in a birth center. We work in all different types of communities, different kinds of levels of care, and we work in conjunction with our OBGYN physician colleagues to provide excellent care. And this is the model of care in many other countries. I know firsthand Europe has a midwifery-based model where we provide care from midwives as our first level of care, and then for more complicated cases, it would go to a physician. And if needed, you would have a surgery. But the goal is to give women the most and best care possible during that special time. And I think when you look at the statistics, midwifery care is really superior in providing women's health outcomes, maternal outcomes, and perinatal outcomes.
I had a midwife with my first child, and the experience was very different than that with my second child. It was more of a nurturing interaction, just as you're indicating. And something just popped into my head. I'm studying Ayurveda, and we talk about the importance of the conception of the child of that day and the energy around the parents. Also, the whole entire pregnancy experience for the mom and the birth process, because that can be very traumatic, not only for the mom, but the child and everyone around it. And so it sounds like with midwifery, did I say that correctly? Midwifery?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
That creates that holistic approach to childbirth.
It is. And I think that should be the common way we work with pregnant patients. But our model is the conventional model is very interventional versus letting the natural order of how pregnancy progresses and how delivery progresses. And I'm not saying that people shouldn't have medications, shouldn't get the help that they need. I think the midwifery model is really about supporting women where they're at and supporting them in their best health and really being in tune with what's happening during pregnancy and delivery to get those best outcomes. I think unfortunately, we swing back and forth, and we saw a huge uptake in midwifery care during COVID because people were very scared to deliver in the hospital. And I think this incentivized women to go and get care either from home birth midwives or birth center midwives. And I love that they got a different experience and understood how having a practitioner who really listens and who's really there for you and has longer visits and is present during your labor and delivery really makes a difference. And you talk about birth trauma, and I think a lot of people talk about birth trauma in the OBGYN community. And I think this is something that really needs to be addressed. Our model of OBGYN care really needs to be shifted to something different. And I think if we looked at our other countries, other industrialized countries that have adopted a midwifery model, we could do a lot better with our outcomes, and our perinatal outcomes, our maternal mortality, morbidity outcomes are worse than our other peers in the world. So I think we have to really shift the way we think about we do OBGYN care. And that's part of the reason that I'm also entering fertility care, just because I do think I'm moving into a space where I think we need more education and more support for women before they get pregnant.
Absolutely. This could be a podcast topic in itself, is trauma. And talking about where it starts to manifest is at the birth, the conception, the pregnancy, the birth time. This is what I've learned with the Ayurveda, which it sounds like you are also well aware of that, and how that can impact the child and carry through their life. It actually, the day they're born, their experiences in the womb can impact. It's almost like they're bringing trauma into their childhood already to start with. And the whole process should be blissful. And that bliss is what balances the energy of the child and the mother and the father and everybody around it. So I think you're onto something, and trying to shift that not only with the fertility portion of that, but the actual childbirth process. And that's a whole new niche, right? And maybe we revisit that topic later on as an entire podcast episode. By the way, we didn't plan on talking about this area in depth. It just organically happened. With the midwifery, you've worked both as a nurse, midwife, and a family nurse practitioner. So how have these roles influenced your approach to patient care and eventually shifting towards integrative and functional medicine?
Yeah, and I think when I was talking about fertility, I feel like I've come full circle. I started my career believing in the power of women's bodies to be pregnant, to give birth, to heal. And so I had a lot of that. Initial training was really holistic, and then wanting to branch into family care because I saw families in need as I saw women. And of course, women are the powerhouses in families, and they were bringing in their other family members and saying, these folks need help. I decided to go into family practice, but I saw that I started shifting into this disease orientation model where I always joke I was a drug dealer, where I just kept pushing pills and drugs. And I didn't really see people truly heal. And there wasn't a lot of engagement around how to really truly understand what's happening in the body and how can we heal from that and how can we shift. A lot of it is our lifestyle, our food is medicine. So I think having that career, I started realizing this isn't what I want to do. I want to go back to what I came into medicine for. And so I decided to shift gears, and I thought maybe I would do it from maybe I could teach other students or something. And then I just realized, nope, I just want to go back in there and do what I think I'm meant to do. And I came back full circle to women's health. I went and did training with the Institute of Functional Medicine, almost relearned how I want to see patients using a root cause model, understanding other natural and holistic modalities, including herbal medicines and supplements, and then integrating that with science, understanding genetics, understanding what's happening at the cellular level, and how do we identify what is the root cause of disease, and how can I do that in a holistic model, one-on-one with patients, being able to spend more time with them, really help them with their lifestyle, mindset, and then, the idea of the power of mindfulness, meditation, herbs, food is medicine again. So that all came back in, and that's the practice that I have right now in doing an integrative approach.
I absolutely agree with you 100%. The root cause analysis approach, patient-centered care, allows people to feel like they're heard. And part of the therapy is to be heard. And with our current healthcare model, it's not to the fault of the healthcare providers. It's the system, right? It's just the way that the system is set up. It's 15 minutes, maybe 10. And it's not enough time for the person to feel relaxed to be able to connect. I know that when I actually pretty blessed, I have a really great primary care physician, and she has family members that are in naturopathy and Ayurveda. So she, even though doesn't necessarily practice in that area, she understands that patients are open to that and need that support. But not all physicians have that awareness. And I think that having folks like you talk about this is going to bring that awareness of that need so patients can be heard. Just that process of communicating is therapy in itself. And just really quick, you mentioned looking at the science, integrating science, Western medicine, taking the best of both worlds, right? And as I've been studying more with Ayurveda, we're looking at root cause analysis. When you look at the Western medicine side, there seems to be a heavy focus on genomic research. For example, the genes are the reason that a person has trauma or a person has depression. It couldn't be the other way around. Because when I looked through research, when you see the genomic research, or we're looking at more of the molecular biology versus the mental health aspects, we seem to stop there. Our root cause analysis doesn't seem to go further as to, is it the actual trauma, PTSD, daily stress that creates the imbalance where the person's exposed to that in whatever way, whether they're vulnerable, like a woman being vulnerable, or as someone of a minority ethnic background where they may not have access to the same support, right? Could that actually affect their genes? Can it alter their genetics? I believe so. Like chemicals we put in our body, our mind, all of those things. So it's quite interesting because I think that there's this dualistic research that we see, but we really don't seem to be going into the actual root. Where's it manifesting?
Really hard to do research on that. I think that's really where it comes from. Number one, research in itself. There's so many different factors that go into research. Yet, as individuals, we are so complicated as individuals. Here we are trying to apply research and do group analysis on population, on maybe one drug or one thing. And yet then we have to apply it to an individual who is such a mix of so many different factors as to what's causing their disease or symptom process. And true, genetics are important, but environment is important. And there's so many environmental impacts on our genetics. So many, like you said, trauma changes the body chemistry, the brain chemistry, and then that affects the genetic. I had a patient who told me that she had this very traumatic breakup, and then suddenly she had loss of energy, severe fatigue, and fibromyalgia. It just goes to show you that one event can certainly impact somebody's health. And obviously there's a biochemical change. There's an energetic change. There's a lot of changes going on in the body. For that one individual, for us to apply all the research, research shows us trends and shows us ideas of how to approach an individual. And I think this is, very much the reason I went into integrative medicine, because I applied almost a recipe to how to deal with hypertension, cholesterol, diabetes. But the fact is that we as individuals are very unique and need a unique approach. So the whole idea that we need research, we need to get ideas, we need understanding of what things are helpful, but we can't just say, yeah, this is our only approach to this problem with an individual patient. And I think this is where the frustration lies in conventional medicine. People feel like they're a widget going through a factory rather than a human that's being addressed and listened to. Like you said, we need to listen to people. We need to hear what are the potential causes, and not just think of the physical, but think of the mental, emotional, and all the other aspects that it.
Totally agree with that. The one size fits all approach doesn't work. The other thing too is the world is dynamic. It's always changing as new information comes in. And if you look at the physiology in a person, our physiology is amazing because it works to get to homeostasis all the time, right? It can actually heal itself if you allow it to, if you give it plenty of time to do that. But the body is never in perfect balance. Why? Because we're always challenging it. We put just eating, just the process of consuming food, your digestive fibers having to break the food down to a more simple form to be absorbed is going to throw the body temporarily out of balance. We have external factors, stress, people, environmental chemicals, like you name it, right? Medication that we take. So there's so many variables that come into our sphere that are always changing things, which goes into ideas. So that's why we see innovation. If we were just to say, okay, we made it, we're here, we wouldn't be able to go further with more technology. So I think the same applies. And as a scientist, I was taught to always question science because we're searching for the answer forever, right? We don't have the absolute. It's the process. And out of process, we might diverge into another area. So I think your point is well taken, is the one size fits all approach doesn't apply well to most things in life. There might be some exceptions. And I think to make sense of things, we do have to standardize processes so that we can measure. I'm a scientist by trade, so my way of moving through was to always try to measure outcome. But I think there's some areas that are more effective to measure qualitative result. Do you have it or do you not? Like with fibromyalgia, does someone still have the symptomology or MS, or do they not? I think we get sometimes too stuck on the quantitative with the research. So you went into this already with the transitioning into integrative and functional medicine. And you talked about what motivated you already. Do you want to expand on that at all? What motivated you from traditional nursing practices to integrative and functional? Or already touched on that. Is there anything else to add to it?
I think with the advances, and especially not only advances in research, but now with this sort of blooming of AI, I think we will see more individualized concepts of how to give care in an individualized manner so that people are really getting tailored care to them. And we don't have the resources or woman or manpower to do that as a system. But I think computers are going to help us. I think from my perspective, when I look at the future of medicine, I see it as integrative medicine and functional medicine. And integrative medicine covers all the traditional healing modalities, which is from Ayurveda to traditional Chinese medicine to Reiki and things that have worked for many, many thousands of years, to herbs and understanding nutrients, to movement, all the different components that make up health. And I think individualizing that care is coming because we're going to have computers and AI to help us. And functional medicine really looks at the root cause at the cellular level and understanding sort of the gut microbiome, the interplay of all the hormones, how is stress and cortisol and adrenal function affecting our health, and what can we do from a behavioral perspective, and then what can we do by giving it what the cells need to actually induce healing. And to your point, healing can happen on its own. We need to give it what it needs, the body what it needs in order to heal. So using functional medicine testing, which is not standardized in conventional medicine. For example, I do gut microbiome testing. That is on the forefront of medicine. We know that the gut microbiome is linked to so many different disease processes, the gut brain connection. And I think as we move forward, because there's so much knowledge and the knowledge is so overwhelming, even as a practitioner of 25 years, I'm constantly learning. I think computers are going to help us speed up the process and really individualize care. That is my motivation to move into this area because I always want to provide the best to my patients. And I think we all deserve the best in healthcare, and this is a future as I see it.
I agree with that. And the gut brain axis, gut health, we know that they're connected just like the heart and the brain with consciousness. And we know that our physiology will mirror consciousness level. A lot of folks, it's hard to wrap their head around that term, but they do go hand in hand. You raise the consciousness level, which is essentially reducing the stress. You improve the physiology of the person. You improve the physiology, you help with the mind, which helps with the gut, and vice versa. They're all connected. To explain what functional medicine is, can you briefly explain integrative and also how integrative and functional medicine differ from conventional medicine?
So integrative medicine is really including all healing modalities, which are traditional and modern practices, and looking at the best of everything. And we are using research to determine how we're advising patients. So, for example, there's plenty of research on how breathing and meditation can improve health. Of course, I'm advising every patient that comes in, we should try to start a breathing practice or a meditation practice. It's not so easy. We're really busy during the day. It's hard to take time out to take a deep breath in and out. It really makes a difference though, right? And we see it personally and we see it in the research. So functional medicine is looking at root cause at the cellular level. What's happening at that cellular level, that hormonal level, what's happening in the communication within the body, what deficiencies are we seeing? How can we really address things from that root cause level?
And then the conventional medicine is?
I call conventional medicine basically conventional medicine to me is what we're doing in our primary care centers, wherever you're getting help. What is your primary care doctor doing for you? And that may be very prescriptive, giving out medications, doing standardized tests, and not really doing the in-depth analysis of what's happening to you as an individual.
The function seems to be different. If you look at Western medicine, they're there to keep you alive and extend your life, not necessarily improve your quality of life. But because they're not diving into what is causing it. There's theories, but like you're saying, it's prescriptive. We're going to treat it with a medication. And we know that when you give a medication, that actually can alter the DNA as well and create other illnesses. I have a what if flow chart, so I'm a retired forensic toxicologist, so I've seen a lot with that. I think many physicians are trained about what these drugs do, but the reality of seeing what they do in a patient and how they function in their daily life, I don't think that information's available to them. I think if they knew, they could visually see it, maybe things would be very different. Whereas folks in the integrative medicine and functional medicine realm seem to be in a different awareness, I guess you could say. I don't know. It's interesting. I'm going off on a tangent for a second. With functional medicine, the one thing I do know is there's a lot of heavily reliance on supplements. Just got into a discussion yesterday on a social media post where they were talking about the importance of supplements. With Ayurveda, where we talk about if you're not able to identify the root cause as to why someone is having a deficiency, you can give them all the supplements you want. That isn't necessarily going to change things. Why? Because usually the predominant issue is the person's inability to efficiently absorb. And there's lots of reasons why someone can't do that. I know there's a time and a place for supplements. But like, for example, if people are taking powdered protein and they want a protein supplement, right? And they're putting it in their water, milk. When I look at the ingredients on those packages, there's a lot of chemicals in there that increase the shelf life on that product. And so to me, that falls under the same category as processed food. Anything in a can, in the freezer, this is what we learn with Ayurveda anyway. Can, freezer, or any packaging that has a chemical to preserve, to extend the shelf life, is actually has a potential of interfering with your gut biome and absorption of nutrients. So with your practice, how do you approach that with all of the supplements?
I think the problem is, you're right, there's a lot of preservatives and a lot of supplements, and they are processed. On the other hand, what I'm seeing is a lot of nutrient deficiencies because people are trying to rely on food. And unfortunately, our food is not as nutrient dense as it used to be probably 20, 30 years ago. And this may be why we're seeing a disease. So much more disease. On top of that, we have toxins that have invaded all of our food processes, our environment, and we're being overloaded with so many sort of inputs that are making it difficult for us to maintain that gut microbiome and have good digestion and absorption. So in my practice, the first thing I work on is the digestive system, because if we don't have a digestive system that's working properly, then we can't get what we need from food and we can't get anything from a supplement. Now, I use third-party tested supplements that are used by functional medicine providers. I think a lot of the supplements over the counter aren't necessarily heavily tested. They don't have exactly what they say. And it's hard for the average consumer to figure out, what do I take? And I see this a lot with the fertility patients coming in. They're on like a host of supplements and they're not seeing any difference in their health. And that's because the supplements themselves may not be as powerful or formulated as well. And I agree. I think the supplement industry is in itself a whole nother sort of creation of maybe something that can be good or bad. And I'm not saying it's bad, because I've certainly seen giving supplements has changed people's health. And I'm not a big fan of people being on bunches of supplements for the rest of their lives. At the same time, when people come to me, they're in a space where they're looking for a solution for their symptoms or their disease. So my idea is to put them on the right path, give them the whole host of holistic interventions, including all the different areas of the lifestyle, behavior, all of those pieces that also make a difference, giving them education on their foods. And I have a dietitian who works with me who really coaches people through food as medicine. And then the supplements are supplements. They basically are there to augment what I'm trying to do and help them with. But the idea is in the long term that they're getting those things from food and they're really changing their food habits, and then maybe using those periodically to help boost their health.
And I can certainly understand you have to weigh what the need is in the immediate time and long term. So if you can give them immediate help, relief, and then you say, okay, this isn't forever. Let's figure out what's causing this. And let's try to remove the causative factors through education. We'll educate you as to, after we identify those things you can do in your lifestyle, your routine. The big thing that I see missing in general in the world, educating folks on nutrition, is food compatibility. Have a complete understanding of, you shouldn't have fish with milk, for example. That's toxic. Equal parts of ghee with honey is also toxic. If you're going to put that in your tea, having meat with sugar is extremely toxic. It can create fermentation in the gut. And a lot of people will have, let's say, ham and pineapple. It's pretty common. Or they'll put some type of a sugar or honey on, which is just creating a disaster in the gut. And I'm not a dietitian, just to be clear to everybody who's listening, but I do study Ayurveda, and we look deeply as to root cause with food. Is the reason why we're struggling with the nutritional value in food today is most people don't cook their own, and they're not cooking it. They're eating it raw. So for example, raw vegetables and some fruits can create a lot of indigestion in the gut. We want to cook them. And I know folks we've been taught here in the US, you want to eat raw vegetables because you get more of the nutrients. But the problem of that is it's very difficult for the gut to digest that, to break it down. So you want to make it easier to digest so that you're taking in as much of those nutrients as possible. And so the analogy I use is, let's say there's a cup and you have another cup of water and you want to pour the water into the other cup. So here are the nutrients that you're putting into the body, right? Imagine plastic wrap over the other cup with holes. And the goal is to try to get all the nutrients into the other cup with the holes. And the cup with the plastic wrap and the holes represents someone who cannot absorb. So you can give that person all the nutrients you can, but if they're not going to absorb it, it's just wasted. It's flowing wrong. That's what I feel like we're seeing today. Instead of the focus on why aren't they absorbing it, like you're talking about with the microbiome, which is key. So I think the education as to what food should go together, portions, cooking, what time of the day, and having breaks in between their meals so they can fully digest their meal from before, is going to help people get the nutritional value out of the food that they buy. Obviously, non-GMO, organic. I know there's a controversy on whether organic is really organic with some folks out there, but just these basic things, right? Again, we can have another podcast on nutrition, that topic in itself. You're going to be covering a lot of ground today. Anyway, I just wanted to just bring that up as to one area that I see is not being completely focused on with health as far as diet and nutrition. So So as you were starting to build your practice, were there some challenges that you faced?
Just like any other business, I feel like I just was challenged with starting a business. And I'm primarily based in community health for so many years. So going to private practice was just a different type of care. And so really didn't have a base of folks who would move with me to my practice. And I think I have to establish myself as an expert in this space and get the word out on what I'm doing. And just like any other business, you have growing pains with trying to establish yourself. And I come from a long history of working for others, and I was finally working for myself and I'm a woman of color. So that in itself adds a different complexity layer to having a business. So I feel like just like any other business owner who's faced with taking that leap of faith and creating something that's unique and special, and you want to give your services to the world and to your community, it's been an interesting journey, and I've really enjoyed figuring out some very basic things like how to do accounting and how to hire somebody and how to manage the day to day and how to market. I think marketing is always a big aspect of running a business. And then I've really loved networking with so many other wonderful providers and meeting other people who really believe in this sort of healthcare and want to help others the way I want to help women, specifically women. I enjoy working with all my patients, but it's been a joy to go back to women's health and really uplift and give my energy to other women who have been are in the places that I used to be, such as being a young mom or starting a tough job or facing other family issues. And I think, like you said, it's not just about here's your prescription, you're out the door. I think a lot of people just need someone to listen, to help them understand how they can maximize their health and be the best person they can be in their lives.
I agree. As I've been actually doing my own research as far as the business, I can totally relate to what you're going through with how do I market and all of these things. It's a lot. You have to learn. You're the jack of all trades, right? You're having to learn all of that, and you can spread yourself thin if you're not able to delegate. So it sounds like through that process, you were able to learn how to delegate. But going back to the women's health, as I'm doing research, I didn't realize this, but autoimmune disease, just that one area. There's so many different types of illnesses and diseases. The population, 90% of autoimmune patients are women. And a very high percentage of that are from minority ethnic background. Of course, they talk about genetic connection, but also I think it has to do with the trauma and the stress that goes hand in hand with that and not having access to care. So what you're doing is extremely important and needed right now, especially with what we're seeing going on in the world and pulling those studies and seeing the majority of the patients are women. And we know that when there's one illness, it can lead to another and another. So when I talk about autoimmune, lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, you name it, there's varying autoimmune diseases. So thank you for what you're doing.
Oh, I love what I'm doing. And I have seen a lot of people who move into functional medicine because they're frustrated by their conventional system are autoimmune patients who have either mild changes, mild symptoms. Sometimes I have very severe patients who can't walk in the room or disabled. And there is the potential to reverse disease in auto patients. And it is harder. It is tougher and it is slower, but it can happen. And I have seen it with my own eyes and I'm shocked by it because these are the cases that in conventional medicine, you're like, oh, we can't do much. We can't do anything. And to see people change their diets and take supplements and start moving and doing things that they feel so motivated to make those changes, to try to change what's happening in the body. And like you said, that genetic expression by changing their environment and changing their behavior. and us giving them the tools they need really makes such a huge difference. And I've seen it with my own eyes, and these are like mini miracles. It's amazing.
And if we leave room for miracles, they do happen. And I had fibromyalgia for 25 years. It's not an autoimmune. However, fibromyalgia can lead to irritable bowel, all kinds of other things, which lowers the immune system, which creates an opportunity for autoimmune, right? And I had it for 25 years and other peripheral stuff as a result of that. And doctors said, there is no cure. You're going to be bedridden. Here's where you're going. And the only way you can deal with this is medication. And for some reason, I just said, no, I don't believe this. And I feel that they were telling the truth in what they were trained to know in their area. I sought out different providers of alternative medicine, acupuncture, acupressure, and immediately they did, but they didn't for long, for weeks or months or something like that. But ultimately, it was changing my lifestyle, diet, routine, meditation, and it was reducing stress and all of that. Gone. And when I talked to Western medicine doctors, how did you do this? Even when I talk to holistic, even people in Ayurveda, they know that there's a way to reverse, like you're saying, but there's not very many people where we see that actually occur. And it's the process of allowing the body to heal itself, limiting the interference as much as possible because the body is resilient. And so it sounds to me, you expanded this based on collaboration. The next question is, do you collaborate with other healthcare providers or holistic providers? And if so, can you provide an example of a type of case of a patient where you did collaborate, and how did you work together?
Yeah, we don't work in isolation. And I think that's the biggest mistake conventional medicine makes, is people who are in conventional medicine, primarily our primary care providers, they think they're alone. And there's so many different resources, so many other healing modalities. And I work with providers from acupuncture to craniosacral therapy, pelvic floor therapy, Reiki, pelvic floor therapy, chiropractors, dietitians, and all of that really can make a difference depending on the case. And the case that I'm thinking of is, I had a young couple in their 30s, or they were 30, not even 30s, who had been trying to get pregnant for a year and weren't successful. And they came in and they were like, how come we're not getting pregnant? We should be having babies left, right, and center. We're 30 years old. And I was like, yeah, agreed. What's going on here? Let's try to figure this out. What's the root cause? And in the process, she had already been seeing a pelvic floor therapist who had referred her to me. I had suggested maybe trying acupuncture, and we did an analysis on what could possibly be the reason for this couple not to get pregnant. In the conventional world, this would be called unexplained infertility. But as I'm talking to her, I'm realizing hormones are low, libido is low. So that's a good sign that hormones are low. She was working long hours, sometimes night shift. So there's a lot of instability of sort of your cortisol, melatonin balance, your circadian rhythms, which can really influence hormone. And there was pelvic pain. So that's why she went to see the pelvic floor therapist. And to me, when people have a lot of pelvic pain or pelvic or menstrual period pain, I'm thinking what inflammation is happening in the gut. Is there gut microbiome issues? Is there inflammation in the uterus? And what's the microbiome doing in the vagina and uterus? And I think we're going to hear more and more about the microbiome and the reproductive system. After doing that research, I put her on a gut reset program where we do an elimination diet. We also work on detoxification. We worked on herbs, supplements, rebalancing the hormones. I'm always working on egg quality by giving certain nutrients to help egg quality is based on hormones and nutrients. So we're working on those two things. And then I think what happens in fertility is most folks go in and it's the woman's fault. And so everybody's focused on the woman's health and no one's really looking at the partner. And we're assuming a heterosexual couple, and this was a heterosexual couple. So I was talking to the husband about what are you doing? What are you doing for your day to day? What are you eating? How are you moving? And here's somebody who was young, working really hard, working long hours, wasn't sleeping well, eating out fast food, drinking. So yes, sperm quantity was good, but sperm quality was probably not good. And so we worked on his health as well. And so 6 months later, they got pregnant. And the beauty of it is they also saw, not only did they see the pelvic floor therapist, they saw the acupuncturist, they saw a dietitian, and then during pregnancy saw a midwife and delivered with a midwife. And the beauty of it was there was a networking event and all of us were there and we were all congratulating each other on taking care of this wonderful couple. And the idea is that it does take a village to help people get healthy, especially in the fertility community. I feel like there's a huge reliance on technology and artificial reproductive technology. And I think there's a way to work on fertility in a more holistic way.
And perfect to look at the partnership, because we know that there's two that tango here, right? So it's not just a one-sided deal. Great insight that you had to look into that. We did touch about root cause in higher incidence of women's immunological disease, but also inflammatory disease, fibromyalgia, for example. And I touched a little bit about what I felt about that, what I've learned. Do you have other insight you'd like to add to that?
About autoimmune disease?
Or any autoimmune inflammatory disease, which usually one leads to the other, fibromyalgia, for example, or a higher incidence rate in women?
I think very much the same approach as this fertility patient. When you're looking at somebody coming in with a really complex situation, looking at them from what angles do we need to address this? And like I said before, I always look at the gut first, and then really a lot of it is rooted in inflammation and toxins in the body. And so how do we release those? And once I start working on those areas, we see a lot of improvement. But I do feel people need to see other folks to get that healing. And I think I see it as it's not only chemical healing, it's, mental healing, emotional healing, spiritual healing. Energetics are really important. What is the energy of the body? Physical healing. I think this is where your therapists, your PT folks really help, or movement therapists help, because it's also moving energy through the body. I think of things holistically when patients come in, and where do I feel they would get the most healing?
So you incorporate the culture of traditional medicine, herbs into your practice. You were talking a little bit about that, the holistic approach. How do you integrate these elements with conventional medicine or medical treatments to achieve the comprehensive patient care? You may have touched on this a little bit with a couple of your earlier responses, but does it also include Ayurveda?
Yeah, so I work with all kinds of herbs and supplements, and I think that's where my training was really helpful through the Institute of Functional Medicine. My family's from India. I didn't train in Ayurveda, but I feel like Ayurveda just is a part of my life, because we cook with so many of our practices, and cooking incorporates the spices, herbs, all those incorporate phytonutrients that help with healing. We're always trying to look at the research, look at what we see as helpful. For example, I think something that's gotten a lot of research is turmeric or curcumin. And I remember talking to my mother, and she says, we just don't have a lot of mental health issues in India. And I was like, I'm sure you do. Maybe some of it is hidden there might be some hidden disease there we're just not talking about. But then there was studies that came out and showed that Alzheimer's was really low in India, probably related to curcumin, or was related to curcumin. And I think a lot of curcumin started getting a lot of research about what things can it help. And interestingly enough, when I'm cooking, or I learned cooking from my mother, she says, "Oh, you always put a pinch of this in." It was curcumin. I said, "Why? It doesn't really have much of a flavor. It doesn't, I don't know. We just always put curcumin in everything." And now I look back and I'm thinking, wow, this was something that was traditional, that healers from many ages ago figured out that this was a really wonderful herb that could really heal in a lot of ways. And let's just add a pinch of this to everything that you cook. And a lot of our Western foods don't have a lot of herbs and don't have a lot of spices, and all of those are truly healing. So part of what I'm encouraging patients to do is to go outside of their convention, their standard American diet, or what we call SAD, and move into experimenting with other types of food out there that have more phytonutrients through herbs and spices. So I think that is one way I'm trying to encourage people to really change the way they think about their daily living. But of course, certain herbs and supplements are really powerful in healing, and curcumin is an example. And I will give a lot of autoimmune folks curcumin to see if there's a benefit there. Interestingly enough, many years ago, I had a patient, I was in a conventional practice, and I had a patient who was on a narcotic and getting regular narcotic prescriptions for pain. And I said, curcumin's really a powerful pain reliever. Why don't you add this curcumin to your daily regimen? And within a month, this person cut back their prescription on narcotics by half. So it was just a powerful example of how incorporating these type of supplements can really benefit those folks in getting traditional conventional treatments.
And is curcumin, is that the precursor of turmeric?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Curcumin
It has anti-inflammatory qualities, but if you put it with pepper, it actually expands the anti-inflammatory qualities. So if you put them together, my understanding with spices is that the spices and herbs actually is you want to try to satisfy all of the tastes, the 6 tastes. So whether it's salty, sweet, astringent, sour, all of the different tastes in the food. But it's also going to depend on the actual person. Some people, if they have more gastric acidity, you don't want to give them hot spices that heat them up. You want to give them more cooling. Like basil would be cooling, for example, would be great for that person. And I think cilantro. Whereas a person who has more of a cooler system, you want to heat it up. So the turmeric and the pepper would be really good example. So there's these basic spices we can put in teas and foods that help to balance the digestive processes and reignite the Agni, which is the digestive fire. And the digestive fire, my understanding is when we look at Western medicine, that's synonymous to the enzymes, the enzyme activity with breaking down things to a more simple form. So you grew up with that. That was a day in the life. And if you just integrate that in your daily life, you don't even have to think about it. You're just like, I'm just going to throw that in because that's what we do. And it makes us feel better. And I think that shows how important it is to tune into your own body. Use your own intuition as to how are you feeling. And that's the one thing I did learn with the fibromyalgia is when I eat certain foods, if I feel, or during that time, if I felt a little bit of indigestion, that's when it would flare up the pain. And so now, if I eat something I'm not supposed to eat that particular day for whatever reason, I can tell immediately if I'm just kind of feel well, if I feel slower to move, like not as sharp in the mind, that kind of thing. So I think that being in touch with your own physiology is really important. And sounds like you're teaching that too, guiding your patients, which is fantastic. So looking at trends and the current trends and practices as a medical advisor for women, How do you see the role of technology and innovation influencing the future of integrative medicine? You touched on this a little bit with AI. Do you have anything to add to that?
I've always been really patient centered and helping people on an individual level. So it was really interesting that I got pulled into being an advisor to some femtech companies. And I'm really loving the experience because I'm coming to realization that with technology is really advancing so rapidly, and healthcare is a huge market for innovation. We really haven't seen in my last 25 years of practice a lot of change other than the electronic health record, which was a disaster for healthcare providers. Honestly, a lot of them still feel like there was nothing to be gained by doing this other than we're able to find the chart every day now. Back in the day, there'd be days you walked in, they're like, we can't find this patient's chart. That isn't a problem anymore, but it's sad that we haven't come too far ahead with all that data. And I have been using electronic health record systems for about 10, 12 years. And so in that 10, 12 years, we are collecting a lot of data, but we're not really seeing a lot of outcome for that collection of data. And I think that's about to change. We're going to actually start utilizing that data and making it into something. And in collaboration with research, I think we're going to see AI guide us on how to help people. And I think on an individual level. As somebody who's been in healthcare for 25 years, it really felt like I've got to take on a responsibility of teaching and helping spread my knowledge and what's happening on the ground and what helps people on a day-to-day basis and bring that to people who are creating these technological advances. Because our best technology is going to come from people who really understand what the average person needs on a day-to-day basis. And coming up with some fancy app or some fancy device that really isn't helping somebody on their day-to-day is really not going to be helpful. And I see that when I talk to founders in networking events, that they haven't completely thought through their product. And so it's been fun to tell people, educate people, question people about what they're doing and make them think about, you can't just create technology for technology's sake. You really need to think about the consumer. And insurance companies, and I don't want to get too much into insurance companies because I know our insurance system, there's a plethora of people who have issues with our insurance system. But I do think that between the insurance system and have made it difficult to innovate and improve health in our country, but it's also people in the health industry. We just aren't really open to change. And I don't know what it is about the culture of healthcare that I haven't been able to put my finger on it, why we are so resistant to change. And I haven't really seen a lot of change. So I think, and as somebody who's a change maker, it's always been really frustrating for me. And it's one of the reasons I went into integrative medicine, but I also think it's one of the reasons I'm starting to move into being an advisor for these companies, because I do see the future of medicine is going to be vastly different in the next 10 to 15 years than what it's been ever before.
I think you're right. And I think the key is listening to what do patients and clients want. Not building technology for what you think would be beneficial. And if someone has been that patient or client and they hear where the challenge is going through the system, which is completely segmented, no one's communicating. There's a delay in seeing people. You have to jump through 20 hoops to get to that specialist. When you're like, you know what, forget it. I'm just going to streamline this for myself, pay out of pocket and go see this person that I need because I know what I need. These people don't know what I need necessarily. And with the insurance company, that guides that path. That's the issue, I think, with, and I don't know this as an answer, I'm only guessing, is why are we not evolving? I've mentioned this many times on my podcast. When we continue down the same path and we see the same results, or they get worse. Isn't that like the definition of insanity? And so if we just take a step back and look at the system, and we look at how many people were ill 2 decades ago, 3 decades ago, how many people are ill now? How's it working for us so far? The Dr. Phil quote, it's not working. And so I think because we have a standardized, heavily compliant adherence with this system, right? Not a lot of wiggle room, especially if you're accepting insurance payment. How do you pivot? How do you break that mold? And so I think the way to break the mold is don't be a part of it. Thank you very much. Let's look at something else and create what you're doing. Although maybe some of these types of services aren't covered under insurance, there could be other potential funding mechanisms to pay for the services for those people. And I think it really goes down to what's important for that individual patient or client. Do they consider their health as their wealth, or is it secondary? And so that's where people will decide where to put their money. In the scheme of things, trying to get my hair done, or should I try to figure out what's going on with me inside? And this is the thing that I also talk about, which I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir, is when you heal the inside, it affects the outside. As we get older, especially as women, this is our template, right? That people come in contact with. We want our hair to look nice. We don't want our wrinkles to show as often. So I just gave up on that. I use good skincare, but with the Botox stuff. And I actually feel like I look better without it. That's my opinion. Maybe other people have a different opinion because I worked on the inside. And then your skin tone and the glow that people have reflects that inner working, not only with the physiology, but also the mind and the spirituality like you're doing. So the fact that you're bringing that all to the table, I think is just absolutely key to changing the world or changing this system, at least in the state of California. Talking about like the integrative medicine, you volunteer your time at UC San Francisco School of Nursing. So how does teaching other nurses, especially with introducing integrative medicine and functional medicine to them as you're within a Western medicine core, how do you communicate your knowledge, your wisdom as to this process and lessons?
I think my biggest emphasis with students is what the most important aspect of healthcare is the human. And all the students, all the health professionals out there are incredibly smart. These young people come in, they're really passionate about healthcare. I remember being there and I'm still passionate about it. I still hold on to that passion that I had as a young person for making a difference in the world. But they're so overwhelmed by all the technical information and all the knowledge and all the things that they have to know and how to make a diagnosis and what's the treatment. And when they come in and work with me, I'm always really focused on what did you hear from the patient? What did you listen to? What did they say? What are they truly needing help with? Because I think we have in our mind, a lot of healthcare professionals will walk in and they have an agenda, and that's not the patient's agenda. I'm always more about teaching the human aspect of interfacing with patients than I am about the technical knowledge. That is all easily available. Actually, in my time, we would go through books and we'd carry all our books in and we'd be flipping through to look things up. Now we have all that on the tips of our finger in a phone. So I always remind them, don't worry about that. You can always look up those things. What's the treatment for an infection, or what's the best antibiotic? Or I said, but really focus on what the patient is telling. Because when you listen, you will truly hear what that person needs and address their need. And that's where he is. The human connection of what truly patients need to feel listened to. And this we know through research helps improve their outcomes. And it sounds super simple, but I think being a caring health professional goes such a long way. And I remember One of the first books I read in nursing school was about caring. And all of us were laughing. Oh my gosh, like we have so much to learn, and they gave us a book on caring. And I need to find that book, because what now, 25 years later, that was not a joke. That was the truth of what healthcare is.
If you would like to share that resource, I'm happy to post that link to that book so anybody in the healthcare industry can look at that. And I agree with you. I think our healthcare system used to be so different. When I actually grew up in the Bay Area, and my pediatrician was out of Stanford, he would make house calls when I think I was 6 or 7 years old. He came to our home. Yeah. You just don't see that anymore. And I'm not saying that doctors should be going to homes, but that's how he was. His heart was in the job. And you're talking about caring and listening. And I think what you're saying is listen to everything they're saying before you start to analyze. And we use that same approach. I used to do crime scenes when I'm a retired forensic toxicologist. And when we would go to a scene, they would say, don't start to come to conclusions before you look at the entire scene, because you may miss something. As your mind goes, here's what happened, you miss all of this over here, which would be the same approach to healthcare with a person. Is if you're listening and you're connecting and you're caring, they're using their intuition and feeling into it. And then at the end, they have all of the information, and then they can start to analyze. Is that the message you're sending?
Yeah. For sure.
That's awesome. So looking at the education, you volunteer, is there any advice that you want to share with current nursing students or professionals who are interested in exploring integrative or functional medicine?
I think I've had students approach me, and I think it is important to understand our current system at the same time as learning integrative approaches. So I think it's hard. You've got a lot to learn in a nurse practitioner program or a nursing program, but learn what we're doing currently. Open your mind to all kinds of learning and healing modalities, and think about how your own integrative approach could change what you do and how you interface with patients. There's so much out there to learn and to do, and focusing on what you're best at is the best way to help others. You don't have to do it all at once. I think that's one of the things that I see a lot of women health professionals feel really overwhelmed by all the things that they have to do to be a health professional. I'm like, just take it one step at a time, do what you can do, and do what you're best at, whether it's women's health or internal medicine, or maybe you realize I don't really want to be in nursing and I want to be an acupuncturist. Whatever it is, find your path, because that's how you're truly of service to others.
When you focus on what you're good at, it's usually what you're passionate about. So you're going to bring a whole lot more to the table, not your part of yourself, but your whole self. And that's beautiful with the whole integrative approach. If everyone's just bringing in what they're good at, you're creating that wholeness. You're bridging the gap, and you're also filling each other's blind spots. It's just like building a team, right? At a board table. You're good at this. You're good at go-to-market strategy. You're good with finance. You're good with leadership. You're great with organizational, running the day-to-day operations kind of thing. So I think that's awesome. Now, when you build a team, like for example, in the Lotus Integrative Health location, the folks that you brought in, is that what you looked at? You looked at how can I bring in areas that are not too much overlapping, but they will complement each other.
I'm not concerned about whether people are overlapping with me or not. I'm just concerned with finding people who truly believe in the power of the body to heal, and are they good people, and are they on a mission like I am to do the right thing? And so I am interfacing with all kinds of different practitioners in the South Bay and the Bay Area to just bring the best of the best to people. And I have a provider list, which I give to all my patients. but these are all the people that I've met that are really fabulous at what they do. Make sure you're exploring what they're doing so that you can see if there's something that really resonates with you that maybe I'm missing. Because like you said, I have blind spots. I have gaps sometimes in the way I'm thinking about things. And I'm really looking to the patient to tell me what they're looking for. Because if I sit here and put my own agenda on somebody else, I'm not getting what they really trying to open and widen people's perception of what you.
So as far as balance, how do you balance your professional responsibilities with personal life, given that you have an extensive role with commitment to your volunteering with UC San Francisco, you're mentoring other nurses, and you have a practice that is probably takes up a lot of your time, and also helping as a consultant for new health tech startups. How do you balance all of that?
I don't know if anybody ever really balances anything. I think we're always sitting here hoping to try or in that search of the perfect balance. I don't think there's a perfect balance. I think you're just constantly juggling on a day-to-day basis what you're doing and trying to maintain. I always try to think of how do I maintain myself and my family as a priority, because I need to take care of my own health in order to take care of other people's health. And I tell that to a lot of the women that come to see me. I always use this sort of like we're captains of the ship. And if we go down, the ship sinks, and we can't be present with anything if we aren't taking care of ourselves and having those boundaries. And we all tend to take on more as parents, as individuals who are trying to do the right thing. We're always trying to take on more than we can handle. I think that's just modern society. And maybe this is another reason for a lot of the health issues is we have a lot to handle in this world. I do feel like I'm way busier than I was 20 years ago, or life feels a lot more busy and complex. But if we take care of ourselves first, then we get to take care of everybody else. And there's only so much you can do in a day. You maintain I got to walk the dog at 6 o'clock, and I got to finish whatever I can by 6 and make sure my poor little dog goes for a walk. And if I need to do a little work extra after that, I will. And I do a lot of the time I do, but I try to keep those things that are really important for me and for my connection with my family, the things that give me it.
I think that's a good approach, and I understand no one's in perfect balance. And I agree with you. I think especially as professional women, more busy now than ever. I'll have a to-do list. I used to say, oh, this is cute. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Now it's just like to-do list for the week. Things get shifted down to the next day kind of thing. Yeah, I can completely empathize with that. But I think it's good that you have a focal point, right? Here are the core importance of the things I have to do for myself. And then I expand out to the things that are the next layer and priority, and then next layer, and whatever gets done. If not, it's eventually going to get done, right? So I think that
sometimes
helps.
it doesn't. And sometimes
Right.
it doesn't.
Yeah.
That's okay.
And
okay.
And we're all still here. It's
right.
Gonna work out, right?
It's gonna be fine.
Yeah.
Sometimes things don't get done, and I'm fine with it. I have it on my list for a while, and then I'm like, okay, it's just not getting done. I'm just gonna get rid of it. Like, there's no point.
It's like that garment that you have in your closet that you keep trying on and then not wearing. And then it's been a year or two and you're like, you know what? I just need to get rid of it.
Absolutely.
Same thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. I have a lot of those sitting in my closet too.
Looked great when it was in the store, and for some reason it doesn't look the same
Doesn't
anymore.
look good anymore.
It's a great deal though. So looking ahead, we have a couple more questions here. Looking ahead, what are your future goals for Lotus Integrative Health and Nursing? How do you plan on continuing to advance the field of integrative functional medicine? So I guess it's two-part, or it could be one and the same. Is your actual business and then the field itself?
I think they do go hand in hand, because whatever I'm doing is really to see if I can make a difference in this field of healthcare. Really, I think integrative and functional medicine is just healthcare, and it really needs to be the future of healthcare. And so the more I talk about it, the more I network and tell people what I'm doing. That's one of my goals, is just to spread the information on root cause and how do you really truly heal, and this type of medicine, which is really the way to go for people. I personally am just thinking on what do I really want to work on. And I keep coming back to fertility. I think fertility is an important topic for so many women. We're seeing them juggle workloads and responsibilities at home and the inability to have children if they want to have children. And there's things that we can do between the OBGYN office and the IVF clinic that aren't being done. And in my head, that's a space that I'm really interested in working on, whether it's incorporating technology or AI or looking at subsets of populations that are facing infertility, like PCOS patients. That's my interest. And I think it comes from my own background as somebody who's had PCOS, who had trouble having my second baby. And I felt really lost. Yet even as a medical professional, I felt really lost. And I feel like if I felt lost, and that was 15 years ago, can you imagine how many people feel lost right now with infertility burgeoning? I've seen all of the folks around me face infertility. So that's the area that I am interested in working with and continue to want to expand on, being a resource for patients, for companies, for startups, wherever I can help. But I really want to continue to see this momentum of change that I'm seeing for healthcare for women. And I think we're on track to actually doing something, and I want to be part of that.
As you're focusing in on women's health with specifically fertility and, for example, PCOS, for example, the OBGYN part of it, we know that some of the issues that women face, like with PCOS, those are related to other endocrine system imbalances, renal system imbalances, and digestive system imbalances, which ultimately go to the mind. So you're not just helping them with that one thing. By helping them figure out what the root cause of that issue is, will actually unfold and heal these other peripheral issues that either are there or are starting to manifest. I think that's really highly intelligent to focus on that one target market niche, because it actually is helping a larger global issue altogether. So I commend you on that. So finally, as we're wrapping this up now, can you share a piece of advice or inspiring thought for our listeners who are interested in taking a more holistic approach to their health and wellness, whether they're in the holistic wellness space, they're nurses, doctors, or their clients or patients?
I always want to just encourage people to read more about integrative and functional medicine. There's so many resources out there. We see PBS specials on integrative and functional medicine. So it's on TV. We have fabulous pioneers in the field. I love like Dr. Troney Lodog or some of the female integrative specialists. Dr. Andrew Weil has been around for a long time. And they all have books out there on whatever issues you're facing. You name whatever your diagnosis is, there's somebody who specializes in that in integrative and functional medicine, and you will find resources and you'll find a lot of information that you can read and actually adopt on your own. So you don't even have to initially go see a practitioner. There's a lot of information out there. But I think if you want more individualized and specialized care, you do need to see a practitioner who has experience. And I trained with the Institute of Functional Medicine. I think they're a fabulous organization. They've really created a curriculum that is really tailored to helping those of us in conventional medicine take that leap in integrative medicine, functional medicine. And they have a practitioner locator on their website, ifm.org. And that's how many people can find me. And that's how a lot of patients find me. I think you can still see your PCP and your conventional medicine provider and see a functional medicine provider and get a lot of value in that. I have a lot of patients who do their primary care through their conventional system in the Bay Area. And I am helping give them that holistic, wide view of all the different healing modalities and all the things that they could be doing to improve their health. And yeah, a lot of conventional medicine folks. I was one of those. I was a skeptical conventional medicine provider. What is this functional medicine stuff? What is this integrative medicine? Once I started going to conferences, once I started meeting people, once I started reading, I really changed my view of how we can truly heal. And now that I've been doing it for 4 years, I can actually see it in practice, and it blows my mind every single time how people are getting better using this approach. But people have to be patient. You have to do, it takes a lot of courage and energy for patients to do some of the things that I ask them to do. It's not just taking a pill. It's not just taking a supplement or herb. There's a lot more to it than that. But the biggest thing that I teach is to have faith and honor your body and to love yourself, because I think we're so hard on ourselves that we're not doing these 10 things. And self-compassion and love goes a long way to really healing, truly healing, and changing the conversation that your mind, body, and spirit are having with each other. I do feel when I see patients, they're just really hard on themselves. And some of my job is just, you're good. You've got this. And they have to build that confidence that their body can heal. And that's not easy, because we have a whole system that tells you that you can't do it.
We have a system that sometimes will say you have 1 month to live or 6 months to live. As soon as those words are said, it limits that person. It diminishes the possibility of unbounded and unexpected miracles. It's a limiting effect, right? Versus unlimited. So I totally agree with that. How can people find you? Do you want to share your website or any of your social media?
Yeah.
links?
So I am on TikTok. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook at Lotus IHN. Is, I think, my Instagram handle. At Lotus Fertility is the TikTok, where I try to do some videos that are helpful for all kinds of patients, honestly, but a lot of it geared towards fertility. We have a website where you can click on a link to do a free discovery call at www.lotusintegrativehealth.com. And we have a specific fertility website called lotusfertility.co. So those are where you can find me, and you can do a free discovery call, which you can just talk to me for 15, 20 minutes and discuss what's happening with you, and we can figure out if it's a good fit to work with me. I do telehealth. I'm licensed in California as a nurse practitioner. I'm licensed in Arizona, Oregon, and Washington as a nurse. Can do some health coaching in those states. So that's where people can find me, and I'm always here to help.
It's wonderful. Thank you for sharing. And we will also link your website link and any social media links in the podcast announcement. Also, with any social media posts that we do, we'll include that as well, so people know how to find you.
Thank you so much. This is so wonderful.
Yeah, thank you so much. You shared a lot, and I'm positive that not only people in the healthcare industry or the holistic industry, but also clients and patients would really benefit from this, and hope they reach out to you as well.
I hope they find someone who can help them the way they need help. I always am encouraging people to go and for someone who can get you with. And that's my biggest wish for everybody.
Me too. Don't give up.
Don't give up.
All right. Thank you so much. Today, I hope you enjoyed hearing about Dr. Chavarkar's journey from traditional nursing to creating a thriving practice in integrative and functional medicine. Her commitment to understanding the root causes of health issues and dedication to blending conventional and holistic approaches is nothing short of remarkable. Her experiences shed light on the impact on a comprehensive patient-centered approach that we all can look towards. The example of the fertility couple she shared, it's a testament to the power of collaboration and personalized care. It's clear her work has not only transformed individual lives, but also pushes boundaries of how we can approach healthcare. Her advice to embrace an open mind and explore integrative and functional medicine resonates deeply. It's a reminder that healing is a journey, one that requires patience, self-compassion, and willingness to seek out new solutions. Milan's dedication to advancing the field of integrative medicine and supporting women's health is truly inspiring. For our listeners who want to learn more about Dr. Milan Chavarkar work or explore integrative or functional medicine further, check out the resources and links in the show's notes. Until next time, remember to honor and care for your body and continue to explore the many paths of wellness. Stay curious, stay compassionate, and keep seeking out what works best for you. Thank you for tuning in, and we look forward to our next conversation. Take care of yourselves and others.
We are interested in feedback on our episodes and learning what topics you may be interested in for future episodes. Please follow us on Instagram, Your Health is Wealth Podcast. Also, our website, yourhealthiswealth.com, and is spelled with a Z instead of an S for yourhealthiswealth.com. The link to the website is also found on the Instagram bio as well. On our website, we list the episodes, and there is an online form where you can fill it out, share your feedback, ask questions, share input on future topics, and also contact us if you're interested in being featured on the podcast. Topic scope is related to health and wellness. Thank you very much for listening to our podcast today and look forward to more. Have a great day, everybody. Take care.